We obsess over boomers and millennials while completely ignoring the invisible architects of reality. There is a ghost generation hiding in plain sight. They are the demographic equivalent of a shrug. But don't mistake silence for absence. This invisible middle cohort built the entire digital infrastructure we are addicted to, then quietly stepped back into the shadows while everyone else started screaming for attention. To understand their psychology, you have to rewind the tape to 1984. It is 3:30 p.m. on a Tuesday. A yellow school bus screeches to a halt on a quiet suburban street. The door opens and a 10-year-old steps out. No parents are waiting, no text messages checking in, just a kid with a house key tied to a shoelace around their neck. By the mid-80s, 7 million children were walking into empty houses every single afternoon. This wasn't negligence, it was the standard operating procedure. This specific solitude created a high-contingency environment. That is fancy psychological speak for a world where consequences were immediate and non-negotiable. You learned physics by falling off a bike without a helmet. You learned sociology by navigating neighborhood hierarchies without a referee. If you broke something, you fixed it or hid it before 6 p.m. Pain was the teacher. That silence in the living room forced an entire generation to become self-reliant before they could even do long division. But look at what they were watching through the window while waiting for mom and dad. Divorce rates were skyrocketing. The concept of lifelong corporate loyalty was dying on the evening news. They watched the American dream get laid off. So they developed a cognitive shield called defensive pessimism. Expect the worst and you are never disappointed. It is not depression, it is strategy. If the system is broken, you stop relying on the system. This explains the ghost mode. This is why they hate posting their lunch on Instagram. For them, privacy isn't a preference. It is a survival tactic forged in empty rooms. And that dark sense of humor? Pure irony. It was the only rational shield against the looming mushroom cloud of the Cold War. When nuclear annihilation is a distinct possibility every time you turn on the TV, sarcasm becomes your primary language. So you have this army of cynical, self-reliant, privacy-obsessed survivors. They grew up in the dark, fixing their own problems, trusting no one. But here is the twist. This feral generation was about to walk blindly into a workforce that was entirely unprepared for their unique approach to responsibility. It started with paper routes at 5 in the morning. You're 10 years old, dragging a canvas bag heavier than you are through snow that hasn't been plowed yet. That wasn't child labor to them. That was Tuesday. Gen X didn't learn work ethic from LinkedIn gurus. They learned it burning their fingers on fry vats and dodging neighborhood dogs for pocket change. This specific grind forged a workforce that is terrifyingly self-sufficient. They don't need a pep talk. They need you to get out of the way. And that brings us to the loyalty problem, or rather, the lack of it. They watched their parents give 40 years to a company only to get a gold watch and a pink slip. Lesson learned. To a Gen Xer, corporate loyalty is a fairy tale for suckers. They are loyal to exactly one thing: competence. Can you actually do the job? If the answer is no, your CEO title is just a decoration. This is the generation raised on Watergate and Iran-Contra. They watched the highest authorities in the world lie on live television. So when a manager with clean hands tries to tell them how to fix a messy problem, the skepticism is instant. It's visceral. But here is the weird paradox. These cynical, latchkey loners are actually the best people to have in a crisis. Why? Because they don't wait for permission. While everyone else is scheduling a meeting to discuss the fire, Gen X has already located the extinguisher. They collaborate quietly, fix the breach, and go back to their cubicles before you even know there was an emergency. And they've had plenty of practice. The dot-com bubble, the 2008 financial collapse. They've been economically waterboarded their entire adult lives. They know the rug isn't just slippery, it's going to be pulled. This constant instability didn't make them fearful, it made them mercenaries. They were the original architects of the side hustle, not because it was trendy, but because relying on a single paycheck felt like playing Russian roulette. They diversified their survival. But this constant state of economic bracing did something deeper. It physically rewired how they process danger. It mutated into a form of hyper-independence so extreme that asking for help doesn't just feel awkward, it registers in their brain as a literal failure of survival. But here's the dark side. That extreme self-reliance? It's basically high-functioning anxiety in a flannel shirt. Research from the Journal of Adult Development highlights a critical flaw in this psychological armor. Gen X refuses to ask for help because to them, assistance feels like a literal admission of defeat. They'd rather burn out silently than admit they can't carry the load alone. And this stubbornness comes from the physical cost of information in their youth. When they wanted to know something, they didn't just summon it from the cloud. They had to walk to a library, navigate a card catalog, and physically hunt it down. That friction created deeper cognitive encoding. It built a mechanical intuition you just don't get from a touchscreen. These are people who fixed derailed bike chains with grease-covered hands and performed percussive maintenance on fuzzy CRT televisions until the picture cleared. But watch the pendulum swing. The irony is absolutely staggering because the Latchkey generation, the kids who drank from garden hoses and vanished until the streetlights came on, invented helicopter parenting. They created the most heavily monitored, geo-fenced childhoods in history. Why? Because they know exactly how dangerous the world is when no one is watching. They are terrified that by digitizing their own kids, they've made them too visible, too trackable, and infinitely more vulnerable than they ever were in the woods behind the subdivision. And that is the tragedy of the middle child generation. They are the last humans to truly understand the texture of analog boredom. The last to know what true solitude feels like without a notification vibrating in their pocket. They are the unthanked bridge, straining to hold the weight of the old world and the new world together, preventing the whole system from snapping. If you want to support more deep psychological dives like this, you need to hit that subscribe button and join the channel right now.